We'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ballard?
Here.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Sturgill?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the recognition of visitors, and I think everybody at the table has been here more than once, so you're no longer visitors. Welcome to the family. We have our first hearing of the public. Jay, you're breaking your streak. You've been first here for the last 3 or 4, but you're breaking your streak. She's got you today. Yeah. She's got you.
Good evening. Rhoda Lee, 1904 West 22nd Street. I have a question for our treasurer and also for our board. In looking over everything, you know, it's really been bothering me, and I have a concern about us not having a levy, a renewal levy on for our kids. Because it's all, you know, no matter what we say, what we do, I say House Bill 70 is unconstitutional, but it's about our kids, the whole thing. And my question is, by us not having a renewal levy on the ballot this year, when can we and when will we be in a crisis type situation financially?
I would have to look at that exactly to see where we're at, but I mean, it's basically, it's probably going to push us up 1 year. So we're through 2021 now. That'll probably bring us back into 2020.
2020.
It'll bring us back into 2021. We're through 2022 now.
Okay, where it will really have an impact on the programs that we have now?
That I cannot say. I don't control that.
Okay, the reason...
I would think just by default, the pot of money is getting smaller. Obviously, you can't sustain. That would make sense, but as to what that would mean implication-wise, that I would not know.
Okay, because really, it really bothers me the fact that what is happening is not against the House Bill 70, it's not against the CEO, what happened, it's about our kids, and they will be losing out. And there are so many needs that we have here for our children in Lorain City School Districts. Many of them are coming to school on a daily basis, and the teachers that are here, and everyone knows it, traumatized. We need nurses in our school, healthcare professionals. We need mental health professionals in our school districts for our children. And we need to have more or less home liaisons, persons who can get into these homes to see that our children get to school and get an education. And I'm thinking now that us not having this renewal levy on the ballot, when can we possibly do it again or apply for it?
If it doesn't go back on the ballot, it then becomes a new money issue, and it can go on at any time at that point, but it would not be considered a renewal. It'd be a new money.
It would be brand new money that,
yes.
So they could either lessen or up the tag on it.
Yeah, it would be completely different. I mean, you could, I guess the sky's the limit with options at that point because it's new money. You could make it whatever, however you wanted to package it, basically.
Okay, that's my question.
And so, for a point of clarity, when is the next time or the last time we have an opportunity to put that on?
I have to have it approved and go through the proper approvals, 4 meetings and everything with you guys, and have it submitted to the Board of Elections by August 5th in order to get it on the November ballot.
And is that the last opportunity, or will there be another opportunity if it don't go on there?
That's the last.
Okay.
And then it would expire as of January 1st.
Marge Walker, 2955 Lexington. I just have a comment. We made Ford's Magazine last month or whenever they had it just recently, and now we made it in Tucson, Arizona, and Minnesota. People that I know that live there said we made their news. I think that's great for the country. Maybe we can get a national band after us.
Wow. I think we're making it for the wrong reasons.
Maybe we can fight them better.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm Jay Pickering. I'm the president of Lorain Education Association, and I represent the teachers here. I wanted to take an opportunity today to clarify the upcoming calendar and how it came about. I want to make sure it's very clear to you and the public that the Lorain Education Association did not approve the calendar that the CEO just approved on February 19th. As you folks on the board know, we work every year to create the calendar, and we met, and he didn't take our recommendation at all. And after we were blamed over the course of the past year a few times, the teachers, for like the half-day professional developments, which we didn't ask for, my membership wanted to make sure it was clear to everybody where the calendar came from and who created it this year. So I thought I'd just point out some differences between our calendar and the CEO's, as well as the calendars that you've approved in the past. I have a little bit of a sheet on the front here. I also have here the school calendar, and the last sheet is the calendar that we proposed. So just a little history. Back in for the 2017-18 calendar, the Board of Education, you guys approved a calendar which had 175 instructional days for students, 2 parent-teacher conference days, 2 teacher records days, and 5 PD days. The key point in our mind is there are 175 instructional days for students. Last year, the CEO approved the 2018-19 calendar, and I will tell you that we did begrudgingly agree to this calendar. We felt it was important for us to meet with the CEO and have good collaborative conversations regarding potential changes. And we've been rather disappointed this year because during those days we weren't really engaged with the changes. But this year's calendar, it has 169 instructional days for scholars, 2 parent-teacher conference days, 1 teacher records day, 9 full PD days, and 6 1/2 day PD days, which equals 3 PD days, for a total of 12 professional development days. So we only have 169 teaching days this year. The CEO approved calendar on February 19th has 168 instructional days for scholars, 1 less than even this year, 2 parent-teacher conference days, 1 teacher records day, 13 professional development days. I'd also like to point out as you look at these calendars that one of our discussions was having enough maximum number of instructional days for students prior to testing. Testing occurs in April. So if you look at the calendars, both of them, and in this case the CEO approved one, there are 136 scholar instructional days prior to April. And in comparison to ours in a minute here. Now the LEA approved calendar, which you have a copy of also, and this was unanimously approved by our representative assembly. It has 177 instructional days for students. We feel it's important that we teach kids and that a less concern is us being taught. If you'll see, we have 9 more days to teach kids in our calendar. Our calendar also has 2 parent-teacher conference days, 1 teacher records day, and 4 PD days. Before the testing month of April, our calendar has 135 student instructional days, which is 1 less than the CEO's plan. In full disclosure, had the CEO seriously considered our calendar, we certainly could have added a couple more days before testing at the beginning of the year. Now, one other issue that had just come up in the last couple of weeks to my attention is a preschool issue. This year, according to the chief of preschool needs 168.5 days of instruction to meet their state mandated hours. Well, this year we've had 3 snow days. So we only really have 166 instructional days because we only have 169. So now the preschool students are currently making up 2.5 days, 2.5 days. I know they already did 1 the other day. They're working this into previously scheduled professional development days. Now, if the chief of the preschool group was correct, we need 168.5 days to equal appropriate hours. The current calendar approved by the CEO only has 168 scheduled days. So they will already have to figure in another half day for the preschool teacher somewhere. or the preschool students. Okay. So I just wanted to point that out to you because you don't get a lot of information, and I want to make sure it's clear that we, the LEA, did not approve this calendar for any mistakes that occur moving forward with how this works out.
Jay, what happens to the preschool if they don't reach the required amount of days?
I am not certain, but I know that we have a bunch of 5-star rated preschools, and to get 5-star rating, you have to fill in a lot of boxes. And I'm sure the number of hours would fall right into that, yeah.
Then the other question I have for you is, when's the last time the LEA has not approved an academic calendar in the school district, to the best of your knowledge?
I know for the 5 years I've done it, we've always approved it. We've always had a collaborative, good conversation. And, yeah, and so, yeah, I can't recall, I've been here over 30 years. Come to think of it, I don't recall us having a big issue on the calendar.
I don't either.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? So I am going to backtrack just a moment and go back to our recognition of visitors. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but we had a guest walk in, Mr. Randall Sampson, who is the new chairman of the ADC Academic Distress Commission. For those who don't know him, would you mind taking a stand, sir? Okay, we'll just wave at him. Thank you for attending our meeting, and we're appreciating you're always welcome here. Thank you. Moving on, nothing else from the public? Approval of the signed minutes. I need a recommendation.
So moved.
Support?
Moved and supported. Roll call?
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Any old business?
I don't know if this falls under old business or not, and, I would like to ask a question to Mr. Riley through the chair. I recently made, March 1st was the last actual public records request that I made, asking for some information, and I also sent another request for some information based on a recent report. My question to Mr. Riley is, the information that we are requesting, is it necessary for this Board of Education to file a public records request as opposed to obtaining that information naturally as the elected Board of Ed?
Through the chair, to the board, and to the public, I'm glad that you asked that question. As the board is aware, and I know that the last meeting here was a very hectic meeting, and a lot of things were covered that day. But as well, we submitted to the board a memorandum setting forth some very simple procedures and protocols that I would like the board to consider as far as interacting with my office, Attorney Giardini, Attorney Santiago, so that we don't get different people doing different things. And one of the things that I asked the board to consider was to make requests for legal opinions through the Office of the President. I did receive from the Office of the Vice President back on March the 1st a request basically for input on a public records matter. And I don't know that I've received the most recent, Anthony, that you may have sent. I'm not familiar with that. But in looking at the request for records, it occurred to me, and I'm basically suggesting to the board that you ask me to write a legal opinion about what the rights are of the board as it regards records kept by the district, created, maintained, or otherwise received by the district, because I believe that's a fundamental issue in regards to responding to these requests for public records. Do we have to make a public records request by state law, or is the board otherwise entitled to review these records without having to go through that process? That's an issue which I have not had any reason to investigate nor research, but I'm prepared to do that, and I would like the board to consider asking me to do so, so that we can get to the bottom line of this. Do you have access to these records without having to go through a formal process such as a request for public records? Getting that issue decided and researched and my opinion issued in that regard, we can then go on to the actual specific records that you're asking for. And I would anticipate being able to do that within a reasonable time. As the memo suggests, the work to be done by lawyers for the board will go through my office, through me, and then I'll either handle it myself or I will delegate it to Mr. Giardini or to Ms. Santiago. So we have 3 lawyers, 2 of whom are very experienced here, and I think that we can get the work done in a reasonable time. So I would ask the board to consider asking me, do we have a right to these records, the records kept, created, maintained by the district, or do we have to go through a process such as the public records request under state law to obtain those records? I'd like to get that fundamental issue out on the table, addressed and answered, and then we can move on to these specific records that you're asking for.
Thank you.
So we won't need to do that as a resolution. We would just need to do that as a personal, as a request
Yeah.
from my office.
And if there are no objections from any other board member for that request, I would like Mr. Ballard to make that request, written request to Law Director Riley, if he could.
Will do.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other old business? Steve, did you have anything from any of our previous meetings that would fall under old business, or is there anything under new business, or?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, very good.
And just for the record, Mr. Riley, you didn't receive the last request because I was following the protocol and going through Mr. Ballard with that request.
Boy, it's very encouraging. Thank you.
I just wanted to give it 24 hours and see if you can maintain protocol. That's
That's hard to do.
You can see he's turning red over there, holding his breath.
so you can, you're on the go button. Report of the treasurer, please.
The one item I have for approval is the recommendation for appointment of Lorain Public Library trustee Tiffany McClellan.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Roll call.
Mr. Demakia?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes. Any report from the CEO, sir?
No. Nothing.
Next item, new business.
Yes, I have an item. I don't know if it's who the question to direct to, perhaps to the administration. Josh might be able to share some insight. I received information today, and this happened actually today. If I can, hopefully I'm going to get it correct. There's a student, Lorain High School. He's been here since he was a junior. I think his mom lived in Lorain, and I'm not sure where she's at now between Lorain and Clearview, and his grandmother's in Lorain. Something's going on. But the student was approached today by someone from the principal's office, and assistant principal, I'm not sure who was it, and was told he had to leave the school. They called his grandmother, like, this isn't, don't come back next week, you have to leave today now. Something with his enrollment, and the student, this is again hearsay, the student was told that if he wasn't registered in Clearview by Friday, they would call the police on his mom, whatever the protocol is. So first, I was wondering, is that accurate? I've heard of a number of folks who've been students who, is something with their enrollment, and they've been asked to leave quite abruptly. And then I guess the challenge that I have with that is, why wasn't there communication between the school official and the parent, as opposed to the minor child, instructing them on what to do next? So first, I would like to know if that is true.
I'm not aware of that.
And who would we inquire with to get that? And the mom, they gave me the mom's number.
Okay.
So I will try and communicate with
Forward me the
her.
information, I'll look into it.
All right. And by all means, if someone could communicate with that parent.
Yeah, the protocol should be definitely communicating with the parent. The child should not be the point, I mean, because the point of reference, it's ultimately a minor cannot make decisions on that, so I will definitely look into it if you can forward me the information.
I will do that. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
That's it for new business. Anyone else?
I have a question that might need some clarification. I understand because I was ill and I was not here. And I'd like to thank everybody for the calls and cards and well wishes while I was out ill for such a long time. But this is what I'm confused about. When I was out ill, it had started, and now it seems to have mushroomed. So I need a bit of clarification. When I was here, the Board of Education needed additional support with the commission and the mayor sitting at the Board of Education to assist us so that we could go in the right direction and get the information that we need. So the commission is here, the board is here, the lawyers that can give us the right ruling, they're here. Now, we've got all the support that we need. Is this reciprocity? Is the board then also have a place at the city council where we sit at their board and assist them if they're at our board assisting us so that we can readily give them the information that they need when the questions come up there? Or is this a one-sided deal where we are the one that need the crutch and they have all the answers at the city council? I just wanted to know, how does this work? And now that we have our commissioner that is the head of the board, is he going to be sitting down there with the city council, or is he just going to take his place here? So that, to me, needs to be some explanation how this growth and mushroom happen. Is it going to stop now that we have the commission, or is it going to continue and we'll have part of the commission sitting at the table with the Board of Education and we don't have a representative at the City Hall? And since we have the lawyers here, I thought I'd just ask that question. And if so, what is the procedure that we can get a board member at the City Hall?
I guess I can add some insight, and maybe you guys can jump in at will. First off, the mayor and the commission are here because we invited them. When this whole process with House Bill 70 started, we took on an approach to be a collaborative partner with the state of Ohio, with the Department of Education, with the current commission that was sitting at the time. We met regularly together and had weekly meetings, conference calls with other commissioners. So this is not anything new. And when we met with this current commission, we also made the request in the very first meeting that we all sat right here and talked about working collaboratively with that distressed commission. Now, unfortunately, under the leadership of that commission, that didn't happen. And now that we have at least 2 commission members on that commission that are open to meeting with us and discussing and dealing with the issues that House Bill 70 and the current administration have brought to Lorain City Schools, I think it is extremely important to have all the stakeholders at the table. As far as Mr. Riley in the legal department and the law director's office, by law, he actually represents the Lorain City School District. That's statute. So we thought in certain incidences it's important to have him at the table, and we certainly appreciate him being here, as we do know that he is extremely busy. The mayor, again, having all the important stakeholders at the table in this process, because it is critical, the future of this school district and how our city is going to move. And if you look at House Bill 70, at some point in time, if it continues, the mayor will have some great influence on that down the road if this situation doesn't get fixed. So I guess to answer your question, those folks are sitting at the table because it is important for us to work through these issues and try to fix and resolve the mess that has been created in the school district. Again, so happy that they are willing to be at this table with us to discuss our challenges in Lorain City School. And I think that, from a lot of people I talked to, there's a lot of people in the community that appreciate it as well. For the first time, we actually have some folks sitting at the table that really want to collaborate and work together to try to resolve the challenges in this school district brought upon House Bill 70 and the current administration. Not sure if I hit it, but...
Well, another piece is...
one moment. I'm pleased that they're all here. What I wanted to know was, does it work the other way?
Let me explain this part.
Is there some information that we need to have at their city council so that we can quickly answer any question at the city council that come up that they need answers to also?
The meeting that the mayor was here, that was the meeting that the mayor requested.
Yes.
That was our board meeting, but a special meeting. But that was, the mayor sent out a request, a letter for the commission, the CEO and the board to meet together. That's what that meeting was. That's why the mayor is not a regular seat at our table. Also, there is no one from city council at our table. So there was never a council representative at this table. There was someone from the mayor's office. The mayor's office and city council are different. And again, the reason the mayor was here is because from his request, He wanted that meeting. So you don't see him here today. There's no placeholder for him. That was a special meeting with those groups, so that's not an ongoing thing. And again, there is no representation of city council here, nor has there ever been city council represented at our meeting.
Who is our legal lawyer for
So-
the Board of Education?
Would you like to, or?
State
So our legal counsel, we have two legal counsels.
Yes,
By board action, Tony Giardini
yes.
is our legal counsel.
That's the one I know.
Right. So, but by default, the law director of the city of Lorain is the legal counsel for the board. That's statute and has been so. And if Mr. Riley would like to comment, he could probably clarify that even better.
Just briefly, I don't find myself too often being lawyer by default, and so that might be a word I might not use, but by law in Ohio, Ms. Johnson, in the event that there is a city school board, city school district with a Board of Education, and there is a city law director, which I am the elected law director for the city of Lorain, by statute, and I don't recall the actual statute reference itself, but it's in the code, the Ohio law, I am required, if the board asks, to come down and provide legal service. So I didn't suggest that that happen. I didn't volunteer my services, but I was asked by the board to provide legal service, and by law, I am duty-bound to do so. So I am your lawyer. I am the board's lawyer. Now, that's unusual, in my opinion, because there aren't many law directors, I don't believe, in the state of Ohio who actually provide direct legal service to the local school board. A long time ago, Mr. Giardini, when he was on the law director staff in Lorain, Ohio, ironically, at that time, way back then, and I think that was way back then, like in the 80s, he provided legal service to the board.
Yes.
But you have the right, and you have, by retaining him, hire outside counsel. This school district, for many, many years, always had outside counsel, not the law director's office, act as its legal counsel. But certainly, you have the right to ask me to perform legal service for you. I have been asked to do so, and I am here, more than willing to provide whatever legal service the board asks me to provide. So that's why I'm here. The law requires me to be here if I'm asked to be here. And I'm prepared to perform whatever legal service the board asks me to perform.
So any information we give you is going to be at the embryonic stage, and you'll have to research everything that we give you so that you'll know how to perform any task and stay on the track for any educational thrusts that we are going through at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was here.
This is new and different.
Yes, that's very much so the case. Now, historically, I have been here at this school district for years and years because I was counsel to the LAA for over 20 years.
Yes.
I'm very familiar with the school district in that sense. And I would say to you that many of the issues that confront a public body, such as the school board, are no different than those that face a public body like the city of Lorain. And so for things like public records and matters of that type, I don't find that to be much of a challenge. I feel that I am more than capable of dealing with those without much research. But those things that are intricate to the operation of a school district, I would say, and as I have said, I'm going to need to have some time, some patience by the board to get myself up to speed.
So where is Mr. Giardini in this?
Well, you may not have had an opportunity to see the memorandum that I prepared and submitted at the last board meeting, and if not, I have some extra copies here. But what I did do is I met with Mr. Giardini and I met with Ms. Santiago, who works for me at City Hall.
Yes.
And I felt it appropriate to prepare a procedure for how it is we would deliver our legal services to the board, so that we wouldn't be tripping over each other. You would know who to call and how to direct your request for service. And Mr. Giardini and I basically agreed that I would act as lead counsel, that the request for legal service would come primarily through me, that he would continue in his role as counsel for the board before the Lorain County Board of Revision, a service he provides now, and that he would perform such other services as I would delegate to him. That's what he and I agreed, and that's in substance what the memo says to you. So that's the way that he and I felt it would best flow, so that there wouldn't be confusion about who would be primarily responsible, how the communication would otherwise flow. And I feel comfortable with that, and I think that Mr. Giardini feels comfortable with that, and that's how we propose to provide service to you.
Okay, thank you for catching me up on that.
And so here I'm going to take the liberty to just kind of say, there's been a lot of action going on in this House Bill 70 world that we're living in. This is Mark Ballard opinion. Since the new governor has taken his seat, a lot has changed down in Columbus. So I've spent the last 2 days or so down in Columbus working, actually had a meeting with our state board superintendent. And if you guys saw the articles that have just come out, he is even saying that House Bill 70 is impossible for them to manage, and they know that there's some change coming. So all the hard work that we're doing here in Lorain is paying off, and we're very appreciated across the entire state. I was at the state school board's meeting, and they were standing in line to talk with me about what's going on in Lorain. So all the hard work that we're doing as a community is changing this thing across the state. So keep up the good work. They're noticing what's going on, and they want to fix it. They're here to help, but they're trying to fix the problem with House Bill 70. So I appreciate the community that's coming together to take our schools back. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Short of that, we have our second hearing of the public. Is there anyone else?
I just wanted to ask the board one thing this particular time. In listening to what is being said about the renewal levy, and I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm asking you all, no matter what's going on, would you please reconsider that renewal levy if we can get it on in the November election? Our children need it. No matter what's going on, you all have to agree and see that our children, we need this levy. We need these services and these resources in our school district for our children. And that's what I'm asking, if you all would think about it and please reconsider that renewal levy. I know Bambi and a number of us have been here, asking and concerned about it. So I'm asking you if you would please reconsider that.
And
Not for what's going on, and I know what's going on, but for our kids.
No, I understand. And I would say we consider, we talk about the levy on a daily basis, and we know we need all the money that we can possibly get into this district. And there's a lot of moving parts that are happening in a right now kind of a state.
Right.
So it could be very likely that a levy could be on soon, depending on some of the changes that are going on down at House Bill
And
70
House Bill
and down at the
70,
state, so.
And haven't we said from the beginning,
Mhm.
dear Micah, Tony, all of you, from the beginning, and we had discussed, prior to even House Bill 70 getting here, and I still say what I said then, I feel that it's unconstitutional.
And that's part of
But
the actions
I-
that we're talking about,
you're talking
because
about.
in Youngstown, they have faced the same issue, and in
Right.
East Cleveland, they're now facing the same
Same
issue. And the
issue.
state's realizing they cannot underwrite all these districts, and that these are some unintended consequences that they're having to realize at this point. And I'm probably talking too much,
No,
but
not too
that
much.
is
I
absolutely
know
being
where you're
considered
coming
at this
from.
point.
I know what's going on.
Yes.
In that area. My thing is, I'm asking now for us to reconsider for these kids. Let's separate what the real tools and the real needs are, and let's deal with that. And you have to deal with that through House Bill 70. There's no other way. And looking at it and all of the things and what they're talking about and having committee for House Bill 512, those of you who have looked at it, will even worsen what we have now. Am I correct?
Yes.
So, it just at this point, I think we're in a situation where we really need this renewal levy for our resources and our services for the kids here in our district. That's all I ask we consider.
Yes, ma'am.
I just like to throw this in. If you go back with the notes, I have been asking about the levy and saying that about the renewal levy for the last 9 to 10 months to go ahead, because there's a lot of moving parts. And I have said that I didn't care how we felt about the CEO, that if you cared about the students, it's a renewal. It does not increase not one penny of any of our house bills or anything like that. It was the money that we needed for the students. And if you cared about that, after he's long since gone, we still needed that money for our students. But because we had some difficulties, that was one of the holdups that we had, because we were so upset with what was going on throughout the community culturally, we did not attend to that because it could have been on already and it could have been passed and ready to go. But if we could have the treasurer tell you the things that has to be done, because it's got to go over to Elyria, that's got to be approved by the auditor over there. There's a number of steps that this has to go through before it can be placed on the levy. That's our only job. And if we get narrow-minded to the point that we say we're not going to pass the levy, it's a renewal, and then we're going to lose it, and it becomes a levy. This thing is just a check. That's all it is, for us to get the money for our children. So it doesn't matter what I feel about the CEO. It comes down what I feel about the student. And I have said that a number of times. I will keep saying that, but I will not put it up for a vote because I know at this point it would be voted down. So, but I will keep saying it, that we do need the levy, the renewal. And I'll say it again, and I'll say it every time I come to this board, that we've got to be sometimes a little bit more
It's 30 too many.
decided that we are going to look a little further and into the depths of our heart and what we want, instead of being so politically minded and sometimes a little disruptive, and focus simply on the student, and that's it.
I take an entirely different approach,
We got.
and my approach has been on this, and I've been pretty silent on this.
It's a hearing of the public.
But I don't think anybody in here can tell me, A, that we need a levy, other than we always need money.
Yes.
That's true. We could always use money for better services and this and that. But the information that I've received, I couldn't look anybody in the face that lives in Lorain and tell them, do we actually need it? Because I really don't know. And you know what? I used to know.
Yes.
I used to know everything. There's information that I haven't gotten. There's information that I've wanted. There's information that I used to get every month, okay?
Yes.
Because while education was supposedly getting so bad, we were busy pulling this thing out of a big financial hole.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is the reason Bill and I agree on that.
No, whoa,
Even
no,
that.
don't hijack Bill.
We still.
Let Bill speak for himself.
Yeah.
We let you speak, now let Bill speak. Let him finish. Thank you.
I thought Bill,
No,
I'm
Bill's not
sorry.
finished. Let
I
him finish,
thought Bill
please.
was finished.
Well,
If I interrupted him,
we
Mr.
do
Williams,
things.
I will
We
let
do
him
things, and
finish.
there's information that we've wanted, and there's information that we have not been privy to for the last year and a half, 20 months. We just haven't been privy to it. There's money that I've seen be spent that I never thought we could afford, not on any given day. Okay, there's things that have been just monies that there's been millions of dollars that have been spent, and I don't know that they've been spent for very good reasons. Okay, so I'm a little reluctant, and I'm not disrespectful, but when I don't get the information and you want my vote, okay, you have to give me the information, and it has not been forthcoming. Now I'm done.
Okay. I'm sorry, Bill, if I interrupted you, but I truly thought that you were finished when you had that pause there. And Mr. Williams, I did not need you to help me with that.
Seemed like you need a little help.
I'm sorry.
Seemed like you need a little help, so I just
I'm
offered a little
sorry.
help.
I did not need you to help me with that, because I'm not a rude person. And Mr. Sturgill, if I owe you an apology,
You don't
that I
owe me an
interrupted
apology.
you during your conversation.
I just want to challenge anybody sitting here at this table to give me numbers and financial figures that we should have, and those are things that boards should have. Do you think I don't care about children?
I know you do.
Okay, I mean, I really, really do care about children and their education. Okay, my whole family has been in education for years.
But I just want to make that perfectly clear, that I was not stepping on your sentences.
Well, I'm
in
not,
any way.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that we are still in the second hearing of the public,
Okay.
not a board work session.
I
So we
apologize.
get back on track, that'd be great.
Courtney Nazario, West 11th Street. Now, putting a levy on the ballot, the school would have to pay for, correct? And how much? I mean, it's tens of thousands of dollars, correct? It could be, depending on how much is put on the ballot,
yeah.
what's on it. So, but we have to pay to put it on the ballot.
Yeah.
So, putting it on the ballot doesn't mean that we're going to have the votes, correct? I mean,
Correct.
we have to get the votes, so we're going to, we don't have a lot of people that have a lot of confidence in the schools. So we're gonna pay the money to put it on the ballot. That should be another reason we need to get the confidence in the schools, correct? To get the people to then vote for the levy. By putting a levy on the ballot doesn't, and I guess the other thing you have to think is, Mr. Hardy hired 30 extra administrators this year. There is money in the budget, evidently. There's 30 extra administrators. When we met with Mr. Hardy in October, he was not worried about the levy being put on the ballot or it passing because he has shaved money off of the budget for the levy not passing. So, I mean, is there extra money, Josh? I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but, I mean, he has said that himself, that he was not worried if the levy was not put on. He was not worried if the levy didn't pass because he shaved that money off of the budget. So we should have that money in there, correct?
Well, I can't speak to
what
what's
he
been,
said,
what's been
exactly. Right.
shaved or whatever the statement is.
Right.
Like, I can't speak to that.
Right.
But, I mean, the costs are the costs. Is there room or an area to possibly cut? Sure. I mean, I think that there's probably not one district in probably the state that
Right,
isn't running at
exactly.
full
It's
efficiency.
Money, right.
Probably start with the
But
administration
I
that
was
got
gonna
hired.
say, we could get rid of 30 administrators and have quite a bit of money left to put into our budget at the end of the day. Thank you.
Can I just say something real quick? Sure. You know, and this example here of what I'm seeing is exactly the problem with House Bill 70. This has created a divisive situation where a Board of Education, and I sit on the ADC, this board does not know the answers to simple questions about the future finances of this district, correct?
It's true.
Okay, so when we look at the problems, and I think maybe Columbus is starting to wake up to the reality of this problem, and the community has been thrown into this craziness over the lack of transparency and the lack of knowing what the future holds. And to me, this is the poster child of why House Bill 70 has to go away. And the lack of local control is evidenced by what we've just seen in this discussion over the last 10 minutes. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Always appreciate it.
Barbie Washington, Riverside Drive, Lorain. We're missing Mr. Hardy from the table. As Ms. Johnson was saying, people are coming to help us work towards our goal of getting out of academic distress. We have had the mayor, we have lawyers, we have the ADC, and of course the board. But for some reason, he's still refusing to come.
Yes.
Is there any, has communication improved? He keeps saying that, Mr. President, you and him meet regularly, speak regularly. Are you guys reaching a meeting of the minds at all?
I think the last time we met has been probably a month ago. But there is a time coming soon, hopefully, that we can meet. And he's been invited, of course, to this meeting and to every meeting that we have. And our goal is to get him here so we can all gather around together. Okay. That's the goal.
And then as far as the levy goes, I know that It Takes a Village also met with Ms. Dillon, and she does not feel that at this time it would be wise to put the levy on. She doesn't think that there is enough community backing for it to pass, and that it would essentially be a waste of money at this time. So my original purpose for standing was the Parent Advisory Council that we have asked to be reinstated was, I thought the meeting went pretty well. We made 2 pages of concerns or things that we would like to address. There was one parent that has been very active in the Parent Advisory Council for some reason didn't get invited. And then there was a new person there that hasn't been involved before and somehow got the invite. So I'm not sure how they decided how to do that. That is not apparent. So we made 2 lists of things we would like to address: parent engagement, initiatives, things that we would like to see done in the district, things we would like to help with. And we got a follow-up email that wants us to correct the student code of conduct. I think it's just another farce. Is that the correct word? We're just putting things out there. I don't think anyone listened to what we had to say, and it was sort of a waste of time. Here's a student code of conduct that came out 5 weeks into the school, and it states that we will engage you in dialogue around the shifts that need to be made in our code of conduct in order to better reflect our vision and core values. And it's March 12th. We are in the last week of the 3rd quarter.
Good evening. My name is Marla Davis, and I just have a quick question for the Board of Education. Say that they do away with House Bill 70. What systems of checks and balances will occur so that we're not placed in this same situation 3 years from now, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now?
Well,
I
can
would
answer
think,
that.
okay, I think that we should hire a superintendent that knows the community, that is exceptional when it comes to educational reform, that is ready to do some update with the teachers, that will help the teachers morally get back to where they were, to uplift the teachers, that will definitely lower the classroom. There's too many students to the classroom, that will do something about the amount of difficulty that we run into every time there's the bell rings and there's trouble in the hallways. I think that there should be a positive attitude between the staff and the students and the office staff. And I think the children should eventually get that feeling that I had, that I was happy to come to school. And there you would have it.
I think the most accurate answer that I could give you is, because we don't know what it would look like, it was very difficult to answer that question. If things went back to the standard, the way that it's always been, it would be a standard superintendent kind of a structure. But we don't know if they do some tweaks to House Bill 70, what that might look like. So we would just be speculating at this point.
So are you guys planning to put a plan in place?
Oh, absolutely. Well, depending on, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did
No,
you get
you're
your?
fine.
Okay. It depends. If they go back to the basic way things have been run, the basic structures of how school districts are run is what would be in place. And then we would try to put some supports, because that's the big thing that we need in Lorain, is wraparounds and supports to support our young people.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Could I say what I was going to say? Just real.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's real simple for me. You mentioned checks and balances, and not to be funny, but as the social studies teacher, if you don't like what they're doing, you vote them out. And that's kind of the way the checks and balances work, as far as now you can't do that. I mean, not to be funny, but I'm appointed to this commission, and so are the other people. So technically, unless we're, I don't know, disappointed and pull us away. So if you're not happy with the way the board is running the school system or who they hire, their intent, I think, is hopefully to collaborate with everybody that works here, their hiring practices and all those things. So, the checks and balance would be, if you don't like what they're doing, and not to be funny, but that's something that is definitely, that as citizens of Lorain, that's what you should be thinking about.
Okay, I mean, the reason why I asked is because, like, with the Board of Nursing, we have certain things, like, you can lose your nursing licensure over the most minute thing. That's why I'm asking, like, what plan isn't going to be put in place so that we're not here 3, 5, 10 years from now repeating the same cycle over and over and over again.
I mean, we all want to work together on this. I mean, the teachers union, the administration, I mean, we're all part of the same team.
Right.
And we want to collaborate with everybody and move Lorain City Schools forward, just like you do. As a
Right.
parent and an employee of the district, is the same with me.
Right.
So I think getting us all on the same page, collaborating with integrity, not to use that phrase, but seriously, that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do, and that's, I think, the direction that I know I want to see Lorain City Schools move forward. And you know, as I finish my career out here, I want to thrive in these last 10 years of my career in this district. So,
Okay, thank you.
sorry, I didn't mean to.
That's good.
My name is Chiquita Cannon Jones, and I live on Arrowhead. I'm here with good news. I'm tired of the drag. I'm here supporting Lorain Marching Band. Lorain Marching Band will be in D.C. April 12th weekend for the Cherry Blossom Parade. This building alone has donated. We have fundraised. We've had support of the teachers. The administrators have donated money to help these kids get to D.C. Now, our biggest hurdle is coming up in December. From December 27th through January 2nd, the end of the year, we've been invited to participate in the Citrus Bowl Parade in Florida. So on that comment with checks and balances, we need some checks. Because we have to raise over $100,000. As you know, Lorain is probably stricken. We don't have money. So I'm counting on all these people sitting up here at this table. We need some donations because our staff is donating, administrators are donating, everybody's donating, but we're not getting anything from the community. So that's why I'm here. So Lorain Marching Band needs your support, and we need your help because we got to raise this $100,000 so we can get there in December. Thank you. Yes.
Are we done? Oh, there's another.
I just wanted to address Ms. Davis. I think what we need to do is fight House Bill 70, and then we fight for proper funding for our schools, and we fight to end standardized testing, and I think we'll realize how great we are.
So I do have another question for our treasurer. Could you update us on where we are with our reimbursement coming from the state and on the payment to the CEO? And also kind of bring us up to speed on how did we ever get in the process of paying the state's employee? And where are we at with that, and how did that happen?
So when it came to the initial contract, there was a contract put in place that was signed off as to how the reimbursement would flow. The benefits and everything would flow through the district.
And let me just get a point of clarity with that. So was that in the initial House Bill 70, or did someone just make that up after we found the CEO?
It was brought to me, it didn't happen in district, it was brought to me between the state and ADC chair at that time, and I had to sign off on behalf of the district between the three of us, and basically outline the reimbursement of not only any benefits as well as salary tied to the CEO, but then also on top of that, the initial search that was done for the CEO was reimbursed. We were getting quarterly payments. It was set up, and excuse me, I'm losing my voice, but it was set up to get quarterly reimbursements as we submitted. We submitted true-ups quarterly, and we did get those timely all of last year. At the beginning, well, coming into this year, the state rep for the financial piece contacted and said, what do you think about doing like an MOU to front load to where we'll give you an estimated amount for the entire year, and then based on, we'll do like the true up at the very end and catch you up on anything that you're due above and beyond, you know, when it came to benefit salaries. There was discussions for kind of back and forth for a good chunk into the beginning of the year. We had not. I continued sending, because we never got an updated MOU to address that, continued sending the quarterly true-ups, and was not getting them for up until, there was a carryover amount, I do want to say that, into this year from last year. So we carried.
How much is it?
It was about $10,000. It was in excess of $10,000.
No, how much do they owe us?
Currently,
About $180,000?
roughly, yeah.
Yeah, 177 plus.
Based on the true-up, based on the previous MOU.
So this process that you're explaining, is that typical, standard process for all of our vendors? We just front-load the amount of money and hope that they reimburse us? And if not, why are we doing it now? And secondly, what's our process for when vendors don't pay us the amount of money they owe us? Do we typically just let them go and say, hey, you know, we'll wait for your money to come? Because currently Youngstown is owed almost $500,000. So are we going to get to the $500,000? I mean, we're talking about a renewal levy for $3.1 million, and, you know, we can't afford to just front load $1 million to the state of Ohio to pay for an employee that isn't even ours.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to if vendors, if there is an outstanding amount we're invoicing, obviously we wouldn't continue service with the vendor. I think it's probably a unique situation being at the, it's the state, but, and I have continued, I guess, from the district's point of view or my point of view from my office, we have continued to send the true up, you know, and continued to have correspondence back and forth. I did finally get the MOU a few days back. So I did sign that, sent that over. I would assume that we would either get that full front-load payment, or we would get at least whatever's due to us through the true-ups current. So,
I guess my question, trying to get understanding, that is not our employee.
Technically, he would be.
Okay, I was.
Because we carry.
No, is he our employee or not?
Well, depends on who the definition is because of the W-2. The
Who's he
W-2 is
report
issued
to?
through the state, through IRS. W-2 is a Lorain City Schools employee because of benefits and whatnot.
That's because
We are
the agreement
reimbursed
you
the
made
cost
with the
of it.
state of Ohio.
Yeah, and based on House Bill 70, I guess my question is, how did that process work? Because we were told, we have nothing to do with this salary or how this person is hired, how he's negotiated, his insurances, and suddenly he's getting checks that say Lorain City Schools, but he's not our employee. So if he had a, you know.
I don't know that House Bill 70 ever made that super clear.
It did, it doesn't. He's not our employee.
So when it was brought to me between ADC and the state, obviously it was something that was how it was going to be reimbursed.
Who's supposed to be paying for the CEO?
I would say.
Not I would say.
Yeah.
Technically, who is supposed to, it's a clear answer.
It's a clear answer.
Then give me the clear answer, please.
Well, obviously the state.
Okay,
but-
don't say, well, obviously the state. I asked the question because it's not, well, obviously. We've been talking about it for weeks, and now we say, well, obviously, when you just said a few seconds before, well, maybe, is it the state's, is the state playing the CEO? Is that what is prescribed in House Bill 70?
I don't know that it says that it's described that way. It's that we would, it doesn't address how it would happen, reimbursement-wise.
The state is responsible for the salary of the CEO, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's, wow.
Correct.
Why does it take, it's like pulling teeth to get a simple, straight answer like that? I mean, we've danced around this thing for the last 10 minutes, and we just simply asked, who's responsible to pay the CEO, and it's the state, correct?
Correct.
And the state right now is in default, correct?
Based on the current MOU, correct.
Yes. And in Youngstown, they were in default for over $400,000. And we are on track to get there. And what we're trying to figure out is what process, how did we become the payer of this?
Through the MOU that was issued through the state.
So since they're not abiding by the MOU, we can stop payment on this service, since they're not paying for it, correct?
I cannot speak to that, but.
I mean, you signed off on it though, right, Josh? So you made that decision to sign off on the MOU as a fiscal officer, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what I'm saying. If they're not paying up and they're not abiding by the contract that they signed off on, then we should stop payment.
And we never agreed to the contract.
And we never agreed to the contract. And we want to talk about renewal levy, and the taxpayers are paying for an employee that's not even theirs. Not your fault. You know.
And I'm asking him the questions, and the questions that he don't know, it makes me then elevate and say, maybe that's another request we need to make to our attorney and see if they can really find out who's responsible.
Yeah,
I'm
the
gonna do
clarity.
that on the floor, but that would be, do you have some thoughts there? I saw you grab
Well,
the mic.
I would just say through the chair to the treasurer, just provide me a copy of the MOU and I'll take a look at it.
Okay, absolutely.
I
And
just,
Josh, I don't mean to, but I know you get bombarded from every which way.
I do.
And then there's this ambiguous thing, and we just need to get there. This is not your
agree.
fault,
Yeah.
clearly.
And
But
this
you're
is-
stuck in the middle of it.
This is certainly a problem with House Bill 70, and in my most recent request, you'll see some information. I did talk to Josh. I did, send it to Mr. Ballard, and I believe it is a conflict of interest in a violation of a Ohio Revised Code to have a treasurer under contract with the Board of Education operating a different job within the same school district that he's been hired to be the treasurer. Currently, he is the treasurer for the Board of Education and the Chief Innovation and Strategy Officer for the CEO. It's a conflict of interest. You can't represent both of those parties, and I believe, according to Ohio Revised Code, it is a violation. So to your defense, you're put in the middle of this battle with finances when we have to make a very difficult decision to put a renewal levy out there. And it's hard to make that decision when we don't have that information. That's all I'm saying.
So what is the $10,000? Is that his raise?
Oh, that's the carryover from
It's a
the year
carryover.
before. That's a whole nother story.
Okay.
Sorry we took over you guys hearing of the public first, but if there's any more from the public.
I would not have.
It's
I
basically
thought
the
it was
difference
over.
between
Nobody was at the mic. Do you have anything
actual
else?
cost versus estimated costs.
Oh.
So you carried it over and it'd be credited towards the next year.
Okay.
Hi, Mary Miller, East 34th Street in beautiful South Lorain. Okay, so terms of contract, in the contract of employment for the CEO, the commission, in accordance with its action as found in the minutes of its meeting held on July 24th, 2017, hereby employs, and the CEO hereby accepts employment as CEO for a period commencing on August 8th, 2017, which constitutes the appointment date of the CEO, consistent with Ohio Revised Code 3302.10, and ending on the 8th day of August 2020. So that's our 3-year contract we have in question. So according to that, it sounds like the commission, right, is in charge of the CEO. That we know, but also that's who is employing, according to this paper, the CEO. So I don't know if it's the state, the school system, or what. Again, in the contract, evaluation, the commission shall conduct a performance evaluation of the CEO after the first 180 days and 365 days of this contract term, which we're now well past. Upon 15 days' notice of the CEO. Thereafter, the commission shall annually conduct a performance evaluation of the CEO upon 15 days' notice to the CEO. That has not happened, so this contract, how is it even a legal binding agreement? I have no idea. It's also signed, dated August 8th, 2017, by the Lorain Academic Distress Commission member Anthony R. Richardson, chair, who is no longer the chair. How is the contract even? Shouldn't there be a new contract? He's operating under a non-contract at the moment. Is there like a grace period for the contract? Does anybody know these things?
We don't have those answers. but
Has
we
there
are
been any
gonna-
evaluation?
Okay, that's the problem.
There has
No.
not been an
No
evaluation.
evaluation. Not from,
The best thing I could say is see you on the 19th.
well, how does the state explain these just inconsistencies in contract? How do they explain just the overall, like, we just do what we want, doesn't matter if the rules apply? Did the commission members ever get sworn in? I would think before the 19th, the other commission members should be sworn in.
I was sworn in.
Okay, at your own volition, at a
They
request
sent me
of-
a letter, and then I had it notarized and sent it back to Columbus.
Okay, thank you,
So-
Columbus. So, how long, 19 months? Nobody else has been sworn in prior to Mr. Coughlin and, of course, Mrs. Zander?
I'm no lawyer again. I think I said that the last time. How are legal binding contracts even valid when they're not being followed? I mean, simple, you know, I mean, I think a Cracker Jack lawyer could probably tell you that it's not.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's a one-year certification from the state for like legal administrative licenses, but I can look into that. I don't know. The state has failed us way more than any board could have in this, board member could have in this state or in this city district. It's like, I really like, it's taken over our lives, and they're taking away from me spending time with my kids, from me being able to coach, to volunteer, to even do homework. So thank you, State of Ohio.
All right, so we need to go into an executive. Is there someone else?
No. I do want to,
Go ahead, please.
I waited because I didn't want to engage in the conversation about the renewal levy during the second hearing of the public on the agenda. But I just want to be clear that I have always voted for a renewal levy or a new money levy for a school district because I do realize the impact it has. As a former teacher, coach in Lorain City School District, as a parent of children in Lorain City School District, and a lifelong citizen of Lorain, I can honestly say from my personal opinion, when you have the state superintendent making a comment in today's article that House Bill 70 created too much hostility and too many challenges, and when they come into a district like Lorain and aggressively, in a hostile manner, take over our school district, why are we paying for it? They should pay for it. And if in fact the mess that they created here with House Bill 70 prevents this Board of Education from doing the right thing and putting a renewal levy out there, the state of Ohio should reimburse this school district for the resources we're going to lose because of the mess that they've created. But the reality is, I can't consciously go to the community, look at the community and say, you know what, because it's a renewal levy and we've always passed renewal levies, let's just rubber stamp this and send it out there and hope that you pass it when we're not even confident. The teachers have voted no confidence, this Board of Education has voted no confidence, and the community as a whole has voted no confidence in the CEO and this administration and the direction of this school district. So therefore, how can we make that decision? And based on the current culture and climate in the school district, this CEO has put us in a position not to even be able to discuss putting a renewal levy out there, in my opinion. So like I said before, and I think I agreed with Mr. Ballard, when the termination of this CEO and these administrators that they brought in here that have killed the culture and climate in the school district and have attacked our educators and have severely diminished the quality of education our students are getting, I can't even discuss a renewal levy. So when that happens, I'll be happy to talk about it, and I will push as hard as I possibly can in this community to get one passed, because I do know we need it, and we need it badly. We always have, and we always will. That's my 2 cents. I just wanted to, I couldn't hold it in. You know, I just can't do that.
When's our next meeting scheduled?
March 26th.
March 26th.
There's another question.
And I think I've asked it before. And have you, Mr. Ballard, you, Mr. Baca, Mr. Williams, gone to the state of Ohio discussing House Bill 70 in terms of letting us know, the state know, and the community know, where the line arcs? And I think this is what Mr. Riley is in the process of trying to do, to find out, does the state and the House Bill 70 have all rights and responsibilities for this whole school district? And I think that's what the young lady is asking, standing here, in terms of the contracts. Who are the contracts with? Are they with the state, or are they with the Lorain City School District?
So the broad answer to your question is the legalities of House Bill 70 is in court right now from a Youngstown crisis. And so the answer is, we don't know. A lot of those lines that you think are black or white are very gray.
Okay, will we possibly be a part of that process? however it's going to be legally?
Yes.
Okay. But at this point in time, we don't know, as citizens and residents here of Lorain community, parents or what have you, as to who is in charge at this point. The state?
Yes, they have yanked local control with House Bill 70.
Totally.
Completely. The state of Ohio has control of the school district, so they can pay for it.
I don't know what their process is in that, Tony. I'm not gonna get into
Yeah,
that.
right.
But, you know, that is my question, because that is one of the things that, you know, when we were talking about the levy and renewal and everything
Yeah.
about the kids.
Ms. Lee, the problem is the language.
I wanted to know legally, the state is in charge of this whole district.
They intentionally passed this bill overnight with such gray language throughout it to accomplish their political agenda. It had nothing to do, yeah. So there are a lot of questions, and hence the reason why we have engaged Law Director Riley and as many resources as we possibly can to get a better understanding of what really is the authority of the people of this
But
community.
you know why I'm a little upset, because this was brought before you guys went, 2011, right? And we discussed this even over a year ago, over 2 years ago, right, Tom? So now here we sit. And now we have to have Mr. Riley to find out, and also, but don't we also have to bring in the state? This community, to ask them a question, ask the state to come in and answer some of the questions now?
We'd love for them to be here.
Can we ask them?
We've invited them, and I've met with them on yesterday. We had lunch, but they are going to carve out some time for us to go there to have the roundtable talk with them in the very near future.
And,
They're scared
Mr.
to
Chair,
come here.
But
I
that
was,
won't stop the House bill, it'll still be in, the House bill will still be there. House Bill 70 will still be there until everything is resolved, and then the new legislation.
That
By
we
the
don't know,
state
because there's
comes
3
across.
bills there's a bill that was dropped, there's 2 more that's going to be happen this week.
And
Yes,
then you have one in committee.
correct.
Okay, that's 4 bills.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify that, so the people in the community would know.
What am I
Mr.
thinking?
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I just received, in all that gray, here's something that's black and white, and this is ORC 3302.10. Someone sent this to us during our meeting. Well, folks out there really watching, I guess.
Okay.
Within 60 days after the state superintendent has designated a chairperson for the Academic Distress Commission, the commission shall appoint a chief executive officer for the district, who shall be paid by the Department of Education and shall serve at the pleasure of the commission. So they said for the district. So we have someone's appointed someone for us, not us, not a employee of the district. And I guess when it says shall be paid by the Department of Education, that kind of is part of an indicator of who they are accountable to, but serving at the pleasure of the commission. So the only accountability that the CEO would have is to the commission, but they can only, I think, hire and fire him.
That's correct.
They don't really have any day-to-day authority over him, his actions. He does what he wants to do, and if they don't like it, they either fire him or, so yeah, there's a lot of lack of accountability.
Sure.
A lot of lack of accountability.
I'm gonna apologize, but I have to abruptly excuse myself, as I wouldn't normally do that, but my beautiful mother takes precedent over Board of Education meetings, and I gotta get her someplace. So,
Absolutely.
Again, my apologies to everybody.
Are we doing the?
Executive session.
Yeah, he'll be
You guys
back.
can catch me up on that.
I think we have one more from the, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Just really quick, I'm sorry. Josh Summer Harvey, 832 Highland Park Boulevard. So do you know if you would face any legal repercussions if you were to just stop payment until we were reimbursed?
I don't know.
So is that something you would consider?
Would I consider it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'm serious.
it's a tough spot for me to be in to take that stance.
Why is that?
Obviously, as I speak last meeting, when some of that stuff was up on the board, I will always, my reputation, my treasurer's license, all of that would always, I would never risk that for anything that would lean on the side of being illegal, immoral, anything like that. So if it was found that that was the case, of course. But I would want something stated as such.
Like by who? Who would you request? Like, what would satisfy you? From who, and what would it have to say?
Probably legal. I mean, I would say.
So if our legal were able to provide you with something that suggested that you could stop payment, then you would?
To answer your question, I would not break the law to, even if I was told to, which is essentially what it, if legal's advising me it's illegal to pay him, then yes, I would stop paying him. And I don't think anybody would ask me differently.
Well, I don't question your integrity or whether you would or would not follow the law. That was never my intent. My question, I guess it is because it's so unclear as to how it got this way. It's unclear how we can get out of it. So, like, you weren't necessarily given a legal document to say you have to pay him from this, correct? From our funds?
The MOU was what stated that, yes.
So that is legal.
And I was advised that, yes, that is how we are going to pay for him, essentially, or to be reimbursed for him is what it is, a reimbursement agreement. And I guess for some clarity, and when we got into the topic of whether or not the state pays him, or yes, per House Bill 70, the state pays him. I think what is a kind of byproduct of how the current MOU kind of is received, based on how he is processed through and the MOU processes him through, he receives a W-2 from Lorain City Schools. So essentially that would, per IRS guidelines, make him a Lorain City Schools employee that then the state is reimbursing us for. Now that doesn't mean that, you know, per his contract, who is he accountable? He's not accountable to anybody at the school district. So that's why I said I wasn't trying to play the back and forth or trying to hide either way. It's more about, I guess, based on IRS guidelines, he is a Lorain City School employee. He receives a W-2 through us. His benefits are through us. We are then reimbursed through the state for that, and all that is based on the MOU.
Was it the previous chair who advised you that that was how it was to be rolled out?
It was between the ADC as well as state representation, talking to the state finance team as well as, because ultimately the state signed off on the MOU, then it went through the ADC, and then I was the last person to sign off on it, and basically I assumed that was how we were going to be reimbursed for him. They wanted for it to roll or come through that way. If I was advised at any point that that wasn't allowable or was illegal, yes, by all means I would stop paying it and would cease to follow that MOU because it's deemed illegal and nobody can ask me to go otherwise.
But is that the only guideline you can follow, as if it is a state law? Or because you weren't given a state law to roll it out this way, why do you need a state law to stop the execution?
I think that comes with some of the gray area of House Bill 70 in general. I, as much as anyone else, have been kind of stuck in between. And I think the one thing that should be known, I mean, as much as, it came out that the teachers would have to reapply, I had to reapply for my own job as well. So when we go down this road of, how I have to, report to the board, report to the CEO, when I am, when we're going through and working through an MOU with a state representation, state legal, and ADC, and there's some of that not so clear language in House Bill 70, and on top of that, the legal team that currently the CEO has, representing the district reviews it. At that point, when I'm being advised that it is, the MOU is following all guidelines and things like that, at that point, then yes, I would sign it. So in that sense, when I'm having legal advise me that the MOU, I wouldn't sign the MOU on my own. When I have legal advising me that the MOU follows everything outlined in House Bill 70, and I'm no lawyer, so I couldn't state either way. I think and I'm sure Pat would attest to this, Mr. Riley would attest to this, there is a lot of gray area within House Bill 70.
So you're saying that you were advised by his legal counsel?
I was advised by the district's current legal counsel, which, yeah, I mean, it's not the board, the difference between the board and the CEO now. The CEO, it would be the district's legal counsel on behalf of the CEO.
So the district council is who the CEO contracted for the district?
Correct.
Who is telling you about his contract?
They reviewed.
That's good. Well, I'm just making sure, yeah, because so he is the person who hired this firm.
Correct.
To represent the district.
Correct.
And his contract.
Well, not the contract.
Well, the MOU.
The contract is through ADC, the MOU is.
Okay, well, again, if that's standard stuff, that's, man, I want one of those. Memorandum of understanding.
Yes. Memorandum of understanding.
Memorandum of understanding.
Wow.
So that being said, if I was advised that it is not a legal document, which I will discuss with Pat, I will forward it on to Mr. Riley, and, you know, if I'm advised as such, obviously I will not do anything illegal. So at that point, yes, I would cease and desist, going through, and he would not run through payroll at that point. I would.
Have you reported to that legal firm that the MOU is not being followed?
They are aware of it, yes. Well, they are aware that we're not getting the reimbursement piece of it, yes.
There goes my question.
I continue, and it was always quarterly, I continue to send, I've been sending them at this point weekly, stating, you know, we are this far behind, you know, I would, you know, give me some kind of update on where we're at on receiving the reimbursement, so.
So, like, city taxes would be taken out just as any other employee? No?
Well, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, all right.
Yeah, I mean, it would still be all the same deductions.
Just curious. Okay. But going back to the contract and the terms of contract, under compensation, skip over. Well, in consideration of the services to be rendered by the CEO of the State of Ohio Department of Education shall provide the funds to pay CEO an annual salary of $190,000 during the first year of contract, $190,000 during the second year of contract, $190,000 during the third year of this contract. Said compensation will be payable in equal installments at the same time and in the same manner as other administrative employees of the district. So he gets his paychecks on time, but the state doesn't reimburse on time. It's just up to their leisure.
I can speak to, yes, the payroll, he is within the payroll is timely biweekly. The true-ups are submitted, and we had not received the payment on time, that is correct.
Okay. It's online. Right, okay. I guess that's all I have.
I don't know if I'm understanding everything correctly. It's so difficult for me to comprehend. Anyways, if we're paying him, why can't we not deposit into his account?
What's the question?
If the school system is paying him, why do we just not put it in his account, cancel it out?
Well, and that is, I think, what the
I know, that's what I said, I'm having a hard time following this.
I think that's what the question was brought up, and if I was advised at some point, you know, legality-wise, after
Well, if you don't have the
Mr.
money,
Riley.
It's gonna bounce.
It works through as a reimbursement, it's not necessarily like.
Yeah, but if they don't reimburse us,
It gets funny because the state wants us to play their game. They're going to take over, but then they tell us, but we'll pay you when we get ready, but you just pay them.
but we don't have the money.
Well, yeah, that's how they, you know, of course we have the money.
Even if we got it, we shouldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly, we shouldn't do it. It's
Even if
not,
we got it, we shouldn't do it.
we don't pay anybody else that way.
I have a really hard time comprehending, so ignore my ignorance and just answering my questions. Thank you.
Okay, we are getting ready. Our next meeting is on the 26th.
March 26th.
At 5 o'clock right here. We will be going into executive session to talk about pending litigation. When we come out, there will be no votes taken, so this will be good night, and you guys can still hang out if you like, but we won't be taking any votes when we come out. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you on the 26th and on the 19th at the ADC. We need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Sturgill?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ballard?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
This has been a production of Lorain City Schools TV 20 WLCS.